So can't has a bit of a bad rap, but can't is not actually a bad word. Can't is can't is our friend. But so when I grew up, there was definitely a push that can't was bad and can is good. Like I remember posters of flip propaganda at schools that's like, success comes in cans. And it's like, okay, uh, I have found after many years of canning that success does not necessarily come in cans. Success is usually accompanied by connections, being physically attractive or naturally good at stuff or just charismatic. So anyways, it's not just like keep saying you can and you'll suddenly succeed. I think we all know that's shenanigans. But, anyways, we definitely liked to write it all over walls. And we talk about like saying you can't as giving up and, not trying hard enough. And you got to find that internal strength and you just got to push through those boundaries and you've got to dig deep, right? All these things that we say that acts like if we're in a situation where we can't, we can just like be like a character in an anime, right? Like where I don't know if you've ever watched anime, but I've watched my fair share. And it's always like this totally impossible situation that they can't do. And then they start thinking about friendship or like they're finding their strength because they have to, because this is right and blah, blah, blah. And then suddenly, boom, they find this ability they didn't have. But that's anime. That's not reality. That doesn't happen in the real world. Yes, there are times to dig deep when it's something that you are really passionately trying to and pushing through your own boundaries, but we're not doing that in workplaces and in personal like relationships and stuff. That's not what we're doing. We're given an ideal that's actually by its very nature unmeetable, and we are told to keep shooting for this target that's not even one that we defined, right? Like it's something that the workplace or whatever has defined as a target that actually nowadays most of the organizational systems and workplaces are completely broken and do not work at all, and nobody is able to do that, but nobody will say they can't because can't is a bad word. And so people keep saying they can, and what they really do is like when the bosses are looking or when you get a visitor like from corporate who comes and observes, then we overclock like crazy and make it look like we're doing it. But it's not really feasible, the idealistic what they expect people to do. You can't overclock a computer 24 hours a day, like 7 days a week. It'll burn out. Like you can't run something at its maximum capacity all of the time. And what they're doing in workplaces is they push this whole idea that you can, like they make the workers overwork all of the time to compensate for a system that doesn't work very well. But that is a whole other video. So I'm going to try and get my ping pong ball back on the ping pong table. And that's my brain. My brain's a ping pong ball. But anyways, so because we have this bad rap of can't, it makes it so that we, for one thing, we're encouraging people to be delusional and think they can. And I mean, if you put this in it, like to put it in a, like a crazy situation to kind of get the clear point, what I'm saying is to be able to say you can't can be really important. If I, at my age, I am 41 years old and I am an average person, nothing super special or attractive or wonderful about me, right? If I suddenly was like, you know what? I can be a K-pop star. And I started like burning my butt, like trying to like learn choreography and practice singing and all this stuff and put myself out there and try. At some point, people will be like, yeah, you can't do this. And it's really embarrassing to see you keep trying. Like, can you please stop? Like, just no, you can't do this, right? Can't can be good in that situation to know up front, I can't do this thing. I'm not going to go and spend all of my energy on something that is not going to pay out. That's a big gamble, right? But we tell people they can do everything. And so then they're gambling all of this like energy and all this stuff and time and all this on things that aren't necessarily going to pay out, right? And oftentimes when they don't pay out, they actually are extremely costly because then we realize what we've spent all that time and energy on it. And it's like, wow, I could have put that somewhere that was actually doing something for me, right? And for me, especially in the workplace, it was like when you're speaking up saying you can't do something, or I'll own my statements, when I'm speaking up saying I can't do something, it's already been like a really pretty emotional roller coaster getting to the point where I'm admitting to myself I can't do this. Or when I do this, it's costing me mental health and I can't get through the rest of my day. Like, yeah, I can maybe do this while I'm here, but then I go home and I got nothing left. And there's things I need to do that are more important, right? And so, like, really being able to get to the point where I'm like, I can't do this thing. I can't do whatever it is. If it's, you know, certain postures at work or certain situations where it's like you're kind of, you know, physically it's a problem or mentally it's a problem, whatever it is. But then you actually speak up after doing all of this deep mental work and all this and getting to this point. And then because can't is perceived as being like a bad thing, I think that it makes it so when you're telling somebody that, they push back on it more because they think, well, if everybody tries hard enough, then they can, right? And so we don't want to acknowledge the existence of this can't, this disability that people may have, this inability to do something that will make us have to actually reevaluate our system. And most of the time when you actually get it through that you can't do something, the way that people handle it is by making everybody else overcompensate for you, which is a big problem because then you're like, you're already embarrassed that you can't do something, but now like everybody knows that they're working harder because you can't. And it's like, if I can't, the chances are there's other people that can't or shouldn't be doing that also. So can we evaluate the system to try and see what needs to change in the system, not make everybody else overwork for because one person can't do a certain thing. You know what I'm saying? And then we also have the problem of when you're talking to somebody and saying, I can't, sometimes what happens is they push back. And then because they're pushing back, I have to reply to explain why I really can't, which oftentimes means I'm giving them personal information that's inappropriate for them to have. Like I have to explain my medical problems or I have to explain my, I don't know, whatever it is that causes a problem, a personal situation at home, whatever is causing us to be able to realize I can't do this thing. I have to then submit it to this person who is then going to sit in judgment on it and decide whether or not it's valid. And all this while, I'm completely vulnerable. I'm like sitting there completely open and being analyzed by somebody who is not, it's not like we're in that kind of relationship where they should be analyzing the like deepest parts of my life. That's not appropriate, right? But because I can't get them to accept the fact that I can't, I'm stuck in this position where oftentimes I start doing that without realizing what I'm doing, and then you leave feeling like just yucky because you know you're already like, it's already difficult to be different and not fit in the system and be the one who speaks up and says you can't do something. But now it's like you're judging yourself because you could see how they're judging you, you know? And so it's just a yucky situation, right? And it's all because we're uncomfortable with people being able to say they can't. Whereas, again, as I mentioned, like if I can't, there are other people who can't also. And there might be something wrong with the expectation. And that's really like, I call it like toxic idealism. I think it is rampant in our world right now. And it's like we have this ideal and the realistic, like the real can't compete with the ideal, but the ideal's unmeetable, but people keep burning themselves out trying to meet this because they're told they can. And like, we're not anime characters, we can't do that. Like we're not able to just like suddenly come up with this magical ability because we tried hard enough and we believe in the power of friendship. Like we just can't do it, right? And so anyways, that's my spiel on this. I'm going to stop before I start ranting more because I could go way deeper, but I don't want to because then I'll get all, you know, worked up and angry at the world again. Whereas I'm trying to encourage people to use your can't wisely because it's a good tool. It's something we're supposed to use. And I mean, and even if you're not ready to use your can't, recognize the people around that are using their can't and support them in it. It's difficult to be the first person to speak up and say something's not that we're not able to do it, but it's really awesome when somebody else backs you up and says, you know, I'm struggling with that too. It can change the whole conversation in a workplace. It can change the whole perspective and like stop it before it goes down that ugly downward spiral because then they realize, oh, it's not just one person. Other people are saying it. Maybe we need to adjust the actual, you know, expectation here.